Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney, and this week we're going to be reading fantasy books. Look, Lola's back. Want to say hi, Lola? Say hi, Lola. So here is what happened. I am a romance girl. I read fantasy in high school. I mean, who didn't read Twilight, right? But as an adult, I've been pretty much a contemporary romance gal through and through. Then I read ACOTAR. A Court of Mist and Fury, to be specific. And now, if a book does not have something science fiction-y, something fantasy-y in it, I'm really not interested, you know? What we're going to be doing this week is reading fantasy books, all the fantasy romance books that I can get my grubby little hands on, starting with none other than Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Now, if you're saying, Courtney, be wary that Throne of Glass isn't an intense romance, I know. I'm sad about it, but I do know that, and I'm still excited to read it because I want to read fantasy. I'm going to start with this book, but I do have other plans for the week. I want to read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I need to be on that bandwagon. I don't have a physical copy with me because they're impossible to buy. A Kindle is good enough for me, you know? But it should be a really fun week, and let's get into the reading vlog. I must interrupt the beginning of this vlog to let you know that I just realized that there's a book before Throne of Glass. I don't know if I needed to read The Assassin's Blade beforehand. I feel quite silly that I didn't, but I just found that out yesterday when I was book shopping. Honestly, it's a little embarrassing that I didn't catch it before, but I think it's just short stories about Selena. I don't know. So if you've read the Throne of Glass series, let me know if I've made a catastrophic mistake or if I need to go back and read the prequels. Let me know. We're going to carry on with the vlog as though I didn't make this mistake. Enjoy. So you know what's crazy is, so I'm like, I don't know, a fifth of the way in. I forgot when I was like all excited. I was like, it's time for fantasy. I just read ACOTAR, all that stuff. I forgot the like barrier to entry for fantasy books because I'm, you know, like a fifth of the way in, and I forgot that I have to learn. I have to learn about why we're here. And I did not read the back of this book. I have no idea what this book or book series is about, just flat out. Not a clue. I do know now, I've read this and then I just read the back of the book. So I know that our main girl's name is Selena Sardothian. That's a good name. I hope it's Selena. Do you ever think about how in fantasy books you get one shot? You get one shot at your brain programming how you say a set of words. So this is Selena. Let's see what the other one is. C-H-A-O-L. If you haven't read these books, how do you say that? C-H-A-O-L. Have you submitted your answer? I'm saying Kale. We're gonna see how that goes for me. We're gonna go with Kale. I'm kind of annoyed with that pronunciation because there's somebody in this book called Cole. So now I have a Kale and a Cole to keep track of. What are some other words that I've decided? Dorian is easy. Who else? The name of the place, at A-D-A-R-L-A-N. I'm saying Adarlan. I tried Adarlan, but that sounds a little bit too much like, oh my darling, oh my darling. So we're calling it Adarlan. The other one's Aurelia? I don't know. So anyways, I forgot that I was gonna have to learn a bunch of new words, and we're doing okay with that. It's fine. I'm not too upset about it. I did read the back of the book, and I learned more about the back of the book than I had in the first fifth of it. We're following Selena Sardothian as she is like opted into this competition. She is trying to win her freedom as the king's champion, and she has to compete against a bunch of men, it turns out. So we've met the prince, we've met the prince's guard. That's who we're gonna, it's like her personal guard. That's Kale. I love Kale already. I like the prince Dorian. He seems a little bit like an F-boy, and so I'm here for that. It's just kind of starting to get to like the action point, and we've learned that there's like a history of slavery in Aurelia by the king and how Selena came to be involved in this. Yeah. So world building isn't my strong suit, as I don't visualize books. So you're giving me all of this description and I'm like, that clock does sound scary. You're right, Selena. Yeah, a glass castle, that's nuts, but not a picture in my brain. So it's going well. I'll keep you updated. made it to about 60% in this book, which is really exciting because the first 200 pages were a little bit not difficult to get through, but it took some effort. And I do think that I've come to realize that with fantasy books in general, hi Lola, with fantasy books in general, for the first 200 pages, it is just like suspend all disbelief. I saw a TikTok that was like, my best advice for reading fantasy is don't try and understand what's going on. And that has been really helpful for me. And just like, oh, eventually the pieces will come together. I just need to keep reading. So Selena, our main character, right now, she's still in the middle of the test. Basically, there's this test that she's participating in, not really voluntarily. Her competitors are getting slowly killed off. They're gruesome deaths. So we're trying to figure out what's going on there. We're getting more pieces of what's happening. We really spend a lot of time with Selena, Prince Dorian, and Kale. Oh, earlier I said that the guy's name was Cole, and that was wrong. It's Kane. So there's Kane, who is a competitor, and he's like this big brooding brute of a man. And then there is Kale, who is the prince's guard, who is like Selena's primary guardian. I'm having a really good time getting to know all three of those characters and try and suss out their vibes. Selena she's mouthy and she doesn't like being told what to do, and she is argumentative and pushes back, and that's really fun to read against Kale, who is the prince's guard and is like quite like used to being in charge. He's a little bit more buttoned up. And then enter in Prince Dorian, he's kind of a ladies' man, and he's just used to getting what he wants. Add on top of that all of these side characters who are kind of out for their own gain. It's making for a really good story, and I'm enjoying it. This is day 2 of working on reading this book, and I'm further along than I was hoping, so I'm excited about that. I am worried about the fact that there's like 7 more books after this one that I'm definitely going to be reading, but also that is very exciting. As soon as I hit record, a car alarm started going off. I finished Throne of Glass yesterday. Today's Wednesday, and I thought that I would do a little get ready with me while I talk about finishing the book and starting Fourth Wing. I liked the book. I liked Throne of Glass, but I think it's overall going to get about a 3-star for me. For me personally, a 3-star can mean one of 2 things. It can mean I thought a book was going to be better and it disappointed me, so it gets 3 stars, or the book was interesting, but it wasn't a perfect book for me, and it didn't hit me as a 4 or 5 stars, so it gets a 3-star. But that doesn't mean it's bad. I thought the first ACOTAR book was a 3-star too, and I ended up loving that series. So Throne of Glass is a 3-star for me. The thing is, it's slow. It's the first book in I think an 8-book series. It's like really setting the stage for what's going to come. Fantasy, as we've discussed, is not my perfect genre all the time. I enjoyed getting to see Selena like come into her own. I've seen some people say that the way she behaves, given her training, doesn't really make sense because she is like quite not emotional, but she has like, what's the word I'm looking for? She has quite extreme emotions, and you would figure that somebody that was trained the way that she was wouldn't be so beholden to her emotions. But I actually really like that Selena has a lot of emotions. On top of that, we get to know the Prince Dorian. Pretty much throughout the whole book, I was just charmed by Dorian. He's so used to getting what he wants, and there are moments in the book where he kind of pulls out the prince card and is like, do you know who you're talking to? And Selena is like, shut up. No. And then we get Kale, the captain's guard. He's like so stoic. It's just fun to watch him like really fight his own feelings about every situation that he's in. He takes his job very, very seriously. And then I don't think I talked about this in any of the other clips, but we meet a princess from a different region. Her name is Nehemia. She's visiting the castle. She and Selena become friends. much to the prince and Kale's dismay, and they don't really like trust her to be out running amok in the castle. Essentially, the competition follows Selena trying to win to become the king's champion. Through the competition, all of these like lords and other court people have they've sponsored various people to compete to become the king's champion. There's 23 other competitors. They're like murderers and contract killers and soldiers, things like that. And they're all brought to do this competition. And the competition, it's not like Hunger Games style. They really are competing to see who would make the best person for the role without being too cruel about it. Also, there's you start to see that there's kind of like a magical force. Selena kind of gets pulled into it a little bit. That part I felt like was a little bit rushed for me. But then again, this is the first book. I cannot find my eyebrow gel. Given that this is the first book in this series, I was happy with it. I feel like it started out, it gave you enough that you're interested in the characters. There's 8 books, so any guess that I have on how things will turn out is probably going to be wrong, but I am rooting for one couple. They're not really a couple, but I am rooting for them, and we'll see how that turns out. I enjoyed it, and I will be reading the next books. The next book that I picked up and am currently reading is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I bought this on my Kindle. I have not been able to find it, but that's okay because it's only available in hardback right now, and if we're being honest, I am not a hardback girl. I would much prefer a paperback. So I bought it on my Kindle last night and I'm barely into it. I think I'm like maybe 4% into it. Yesterday was the 4th of July, so I had a lot of time to read. By the time that I picked up Fourth Wing, it was a little bit late and my eyes were a little bit fatigued from reading. I will say that Fourth Wing does have a totally different vibe to Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass like had a really nice sloping, it was like a slow descent into the storyline, whereas with Fourth Wing it feels a lot more like you're just thrown into it. You're getting terminology right away, you're just kind of thrown right in, whereas with Sarah J Maas I find that she takes her time, especially in the first book, to like set the stage of the entire world over the course of that book. And in Fourth Wing it was like there's Violet, there's 4 quadrants, she was supposed to be a scribe, she's going to be a writer. I literally only read maybe 10 pages of the book and I got all that information right away. So it is a bit of a different vibe. From what I understand about this book, there is a girl named Violet who is meant to be a scribe, and she instead gets placed into the writer quadrant because you can be one of 4, you fall into one of 4 quadrants. So she gets placed into the writer quadrant, but she is frail. They keep calling her frail, and she did never train to be a writer. So she's a little bit concerned about that placement. So I don't know much more than that, and my little bitty reading has not given me much information aside from the fact that it's like, this is kind of like a strap in and hold on situation, because I don't think I'm going to understand it for a while. And what's funny is that literally just the day before yesterday on Monday, I was like, Courtney, you're not always gonna get it right away, and that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself. And here I am starting another one, and I'm like, but I don't get it. You know, such is life. I did read on the Goodreads outline that there is something called a wing leader, and that is hilarious. And I love when books do like silly little, not even puns, but silly little names like that, where I get a chuckle when I read it. And I'm sure that Zayden, or whatever his name is, who is the wing leader, is very important and very big and bad, but it's just funny that wing leader is a hilarious term. I didn't realize how long, Fig, can we stop? I didn't realize how long this book was, but I know according to my Kindle that it's going to take me an additional 16 hours to finish it. I don't know about that. It's a biggie. It's not a little smally, so I think it's going to be a good read. I can't see how it wouldn't be, given that so many people really love this book, and I do tend to like books that other people like. It's just too early for me to call if I'm going to like it or not, but I've liked what I've read so far, even though it's just a little bit of the book. So I have made it to about 40% into Fourth Wing, and I am absolutely loving it. This book has been so easy to get into, and there's so much action, and it feels like the stakes are pretty high. It's just been really fun to watch Violet, our main character, kind of navigate through this world she didn't realize she was going to be thrust into. And I think that starting out, because I knew that Violet was more of like a fragile physically character, that I had a feeling that she was going to be fragile mentally, and she's really not. So that's been really nice to watch her just be like, I will be doing what I said I'm going to do. Thank you. I am 40% of the way through, so I don't think the main conflict has happened, but if you've watched anybody talk about Fourth Wing, you've probably heard them talk about specifically that the pacing of this book, it like clips right along. Like they're at the 40% mark. This could have been its own book, and we could have stopped right here and been like, okay, wait till next year for the next one. It feels very action forward, and it feels like you're following along a really quick moving book. So you're getting like heavy action, heavy character development, or not even so much character development, but the plot is moving so quickly. You are keeping up and you're catching on. It is Friday. I am going to hopefully finish this book today and tomorrow, and then wrap this little reading vlog up and tell you how my week of reading fantasy went. I did finish Fourth Wing this morning, and dang, is that a good book. It's so good. It's a good one, guys. It's Sunday today, and I did finish Fourth Wing. I don't know if it's gonna be like a 5-star for me because I did have some issues with the writing. The story is like a 10 out of 10. This book could have been easily broken up into 2, if not 3 books, and instead you get all of the action in one. It is a romantasy. You're getting a good amount of romance in it, which I really loved. There's an intensity, and the stakes are really high. And in the final third, I would say, I was quite literally like, I had to be in the right frame of mind to be reading it, which is a really good sign for me with books, is when I'm getting to a scene and I know it's going to be intense and I'm like, oh, I can't read it right now. It's too, like, I'll be too distracted. And I was able to finish it this morning, and I cried. I kind of figured out what was going on by the end, just because I pseudo had the book spoiled for me. And so I'm gonna try and stay away from that entirely, because I want you to read this book. It's really good. And if mine is the only review of it you watch, I want you to go into it with no spoilers. My only issues with the book is that the writing sometimes felt like it could have been polished a little bit. Sometimes with the dialogue, I felt like I couldn't really tell who was speaking, but that could have been a me thing. It ended up being just as good as the hype had hyped it up to be. The next one comes out in October, I think, and I'm really excited to read that one. I don't know if I'm going to try and find the physical copies of it. Like I said, it came out in hardback. The next one's probably going to come out in hardback, so I might do the Kindle version, but I will 100% be reading the rest of this series. I think it's slotted to be a 5-book series. If you're a romantasy reader, if you're a fantasy reader, I highly encourage you pick this up. I really loved it, and I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to read it this week. It's not that it was better than Throne of Glass. The writing was a little bit better in Throne of Glass for me, but the pacing and the action and everything you get for the first book was so good, and I can't wait to see what Rebecca Yarros does with the second one. As far as reading fantasy for a week went for me, I thought it went really well. I read 2 books that I ended up really enjoying. I will say that as a challenge overall, this reading week was challenging because I didn't necessarily want to read fantasy all the time. I think I took a break between ACOTAR and fantasy this week, and I think if I had just been going, it would have been okay. Having to rebuild worlds and having to get back into the mindset and learn a different set of characters, it took a little bit more of a toll on my desire to read than I was expecting. So I think I'm going to start chipping away at the Throne of Glass series, because it's like a fully established series. I have a lot of books to read, but looking forward to the rest of my reading month, I'm excited to pick up things that are lower stakes, because it is a lot of intensity for me to feel. Reading fantasy had me like feeling some feelings. It had me feeling anxious, and I was really worried about how the end of the book would go. I think that I can fully say that I really do enjoy fantasy romance. I think this experiment went well, and overall I had a great reading week. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!